Hi, I'm Kristen with Chef K Gear, and today we're making curry pork pies, which is a really versatile, fun recipe out of the book Smoke and Pickles by Chef Edward Lee. I love this recipe because it can be turned into a variety of things. Today we're gonna make little hand pies. I'm gonna start with the bacon because I wanna render off all that fat to use to cook the vegetables and add the first layer of flavor. Something I want to mention while I'm cooking is that mise en place is really important to consider anytime you're in the kitchen cooking. Mise en place is the concept that you have everything in its place, everything you need before you even start cooking. So if you'll notice, I have all of the ingredients already measured in bowls, ready to go. You don't have to be this official about it, but it does make your life a lot easier. So make sure that you read the recipe you're cooking from beginning to end so you know exactly what ingredients you need and you know that you have them on hand. There's nothing worse than starting to make a recipe, throwing in a few ingredients, and then realizing you need something that you don't even have. So read the recipe. It's also important to read all the instructions because it might mention some equipment that you don't necessarily have and need to borrow. The instructions might tell you what temperature to preheat your oven to, and you need to do that ahead of time. So again, read the ingredients, read the instructions, and know exactly what you're doing before you even get started. I'm just rendering down this fat. When I was a culinary arts instructor, one of the things that I shared with my students is that the concept of mise en place doesn't just apply with ingredients in the kitchen. I think if you tackle life with the concept of mise en place, you are more likely to have less stress and be more successful. So for me, it just means taking care of business. You need to have all your ducks in a row and have a plan when you start each day. Maybe it's a routine. The concept of mise en place is beneficial, not just in the kitchen, but also in life. All right, for these delicious curry pork pies, I'm gonna add in my diced up onion. And you'll notice with all the vegetables that I'm going to be putting in the pan, the knife cuts are similar and they're on the smaller side because what we're making are hand pies. So everything is going to fit into a nice little vessel of dough, and you don't want big chunks of anything in there to bite through. So I did go a little bit smaller on dicing up of the vegetables. Now I'm gonna add in this ground pork. You can use a variety of meats. One time I made these with chorizo, tons of flavor. You don't have to put in the bacon if you don't prefer, but you will have to use some sort of a fat or oil in the pan to saute those onions. Next, we're gonna put in some diced up green bell pepper. I like the rich flavor of the green bell pepper, but you could use any color bell pepper that you like. There's just something about the dark green bell pepper with the pork that is appealing. And now some carrots. Not only do the carrots add a bright color, but it's another texture that's really nice. These little ham pies would not be the same without a nice amount of garlic and freshly grated ginger. It's also freshly grated garlic because there's nothing better. There are a lot of delicious juices in the pan, and I don't want to lose the flavor, but I don't want that juice dripping out of my hand pies. I want to thicken it a little bit. So I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of flour, which will absorb some of the fat and some of the juices that have been released, but keep them in the dish for all that flavor. I'm just going to stir it around a little bit to cook out the flavor of the flour. We don't want the flavor of the flour, so the longer you incorporate it and mix it in, the better. Add a little bit more because I can still see some more of those juices in there. cooking breaks down the flavor of that flour, which is a nice secret to know because you don't want it to taste all of a sudden, have all the seasoning you put in be overpowered by the flavor of flour. So it looks held together. It looks a little bit shiny, but not liquidy. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next step, which is to add some chicken stock. And I'm gonna add as I go. I'm not gonna pour it all in because I don't want it to become a soup, but I want those flour molecules to absorb the liquid. And give it the perfect texture for the filling of a ham pie. I also need to add in a little bit of soy sauce. And last but not least, this dish would not be the same without curry. Curry just marries all of those flavors together. Smells so good. I'm gonna put it all in. I'm feeling the curry today. Okay, now that we have everything cooked, it's gonna sit and cool, and then we're going to fill the little ham pies. Okay, we are ready to make our hand pies. And I decided today I'm going to make a full circle hand pie instead of the little half moons that usually you see. So first thing I'm gonna do is cut out all of my circles. Try and use as much of the dough as possible. And I'm using pre-made dough. I cheated. You can make it from scratch, but it's also fine to buy it. Okay. So now we need pairs of circles because I'm using a top and a bottom. So I'm gonna do 4 right here. We're gonna use a little scoop and put it right in the center. You don't wanna put the filling out to the edges because then the top piece of dough won't be able to stick to the bottom. And then your filling will escape. Okay, I've got the filling in the center of each disc of dough, and now I'm going to put a little bit of egg wash around the edge, and I thinned this egg with a little bit of water because I want this top dough to stick. So go around and do the same thing to all of them. Just brush it lightly on. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, and now I'm gonna put the tops on. You have to stretch the dough just a little bit. Press it down lightly with your fingers. When you're working on this stage of it, you do want to work a little bit quickly so that your dough doesn't dry out. And you also don't want it to get too soft because all of that delicious butter that's in there is cold. You don't want it to melt and compromise the integrity of your dough. Okay, a couple more things. I have a fork and I'm going to just use that as a tool to help seal the edges so it doesn't pop open during cooking. There's a lot of steam that will accumulate inside of the pies and that could help lift the top off, and we don't want that to happen. You also want to be careful, don't overthink it, but you don't want to be stabbing the dough, defeating the purpose by poking a bunch of holes in it. So just using it to press, and it leaves kind of a attractive pattern. Okay, once you have those pressed down, we're gonna do another layer of egg wash. Actually, I'm gonna put them on the cookie sheet first because it's gonna be harder to pick it up once I have all that egg on there. Okay. So this egg wash helps it brown and gives it a really nice, beautiful exterior color and texture when it's done baking. Try not to slop it around too much, but it's gonna make a little mess, that's normal. And the last step, I'm gonna put a little tiny slit in the top of each pie. You could do something fun and decorative if you want. I'm just gonna do a little slit so that a little bit of that steam will escape and the dough will have the ability to rise nicely and cook all the way through. Okay, let's pop these in the oven. I'm Kristen with Chef K Gear, and for more culinary tips and tricks and to learn about our custom culinary apparel, go to chefkgear.com or find us on YouTube at Chef K Gear.